At COP28, the world decided to turn away from fossil fuels. Instead, it aims to advance the global energy transition by tripling the capacities of renewable energy until 2030, while doubling the rate of energy efficiency improvements. How can we deliver on these goals to keep 1.5 degrees within reach?
So, welcome, Excellencies, dear ladies and gentlemen, to this high-level panel entitled A Global Renewables and Energy Efficiency Target, Commitment to Action. And as was being discussed in the opening ceremony, the commitments that were agreed at COP28 signal true momentum for the energy transition. Not only did the international community sign up to those landmark pledges to triple renewables and double energy efficiency, but it also agreed for the first time ever to transition out of fossil fuels. And that, of course, is a historic step. As we also heard in the opening session, the question is, how do we turn those pledges into action, into reality? And that's what we want to talk about here now on this panel. Which policies are needed at what levels to boost energy efficiency and renewables? Who must do what to accelerate the scale, the scope, and the geographical sweep of the global Energiewende? We've got an outstanding group of policy and industry leaders with us to answer those questions. I'm going to keep the introductions brief in order to maximize our time for discussion. It is my great pleasure to greet His Excellency Antoine Diome. He is Minister of Oil and Energy for the Republic of Senegal. He's a magistrate and previously served as Senegal's Minister of the Interior. Bonjour, enchanté. And the minister will speak in French, so if you require translation, please do get your headsets ready. Seated next to him is a very welcome returning guest. Francesco La Camara is Director General of the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, responsible for leading delivery of IRENA's work program and strategy. And under his leadership, the agency has forged high-impact partnerships with international organizations and industry. Great to have you with us as well, Francesco. Seated next to him is Shri Bhupinder Singh Bala. He is Secretary in Industry's Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. One focus of his efforts has been boosting decentralized, community-driven local solutions, including distributed renewable energy to enhance participation of rural areas. That, of course, was a topic in our opening ceremony just now. Sonia Dunlop is with us. She is CEO of the Global Solar Council and Vice Chair of the Global Renewables Alliance. She has worked in the solar PV industry, served on the COP26 Glasgow organizing team, and helped shape renewable energy policy at the European Parliament. Nice to have you with us, Sonia. And finally, I am very pleased to introduce His Excellency Professor Gilberto Pichetto Fratin. He's Italy's Minister of the Environment and Energy Security. Under his tenure, Italy has approved a decree to boost renewable power through a new set of investment incentives and deregulation. Welcome to all of you. And before we launch our discussion, dear audience, I would like to ask you to weigh in. As mentioned earlier, we do have a Slido tool, and I'm hoping we can get the barcode up on the screen so that you can go online to our Slido website to take part in our poll. And here's our question, if I may. Which are the most important implementing actors of the COP28 decisions? Which ones have the most leverage? And you see the choices. We have multilateral politics, national politics, public finance, private companies, and consumers as our choices. Please vote now, and we'll come back to the result a little bit later. So, dear panelists, I would like to begin with an interview, with an overview of where things stand now. And I'm going to ask Francesco to get us started with a 5-minute input. And Francesco, this morning at the BETD press conference, you unveiled a special edition of IRENA's World Energy Transitions Outlook, WEDO 2024. So tell us, how optimistic are you about the pace of the global transition. Where do you see success cases that can be scaled up? And what are the biggest challenges that we still have to tackle? Over to you.
Thank you, Melinda, and naturally thanks to the German government for having ARENA again and the BTD. It's a great pleasure to be in our co-host. As you know, ARENA is headquartered in Abu Dhabi, but we have offices in Germany, in Bonn. So, responding to your question, first, all of us, we have been satisfied in some way about the outcome of COP28. So I think the commitment of triple renewable energy, double energy efficiency in the final document, and the transitioning from fossil fuel has been in some way outstanding. No? Also, the COP has been able to put in a target that can be measured, the reduction of emissions that we need 2030 to be in line with the achievement of the Paris Agreement goal. So the 11 terawatt of installed capacity. But when we talk about be pessimistic, optimistic, we cannot. Always we have to distinguish between what are the commitment, the promises, and what is the reality. So the triple of renewable energy capacity was in line with yearly installed capacity of renewables, already started by 2023, of 1,000 gigawatts per year. The fact is that last year we have installed 473 gigawatts of renewables. This is something impressive because it's almost 50 or 60% more than what we have installed the previous year. But it's still half of what we needed. So it means that if you want to still get the result that we need for being in line with 1.5, now we have to install 1,100 gigawatts per year. So it means more than double what we have done the last year. So this is something that makes clear how urgent it is to act. And we have also made clear, and as also I did in the press conference, that we have, first of all, to abandon definitely this concept of neutral technology neutrality. Because people still say that what is important is not the fuel, but the reduction of emissions. So every technology that provides for a reduction of the CO2 emission is good. But it's not the truth, because we have to do this in a limited time. So we have to confront the technology that we use with the fact that we have to get results by 2030. And I always give this example because someone has come up with this idea of the renaissance of nuclear. No? And I always make this game. I don't want to lose much time to do it together, but I invite you later on to go on Google and digit world installed nuclear capacity. And there will come a number. It's 371 gigawatts. It's 30% less that we have installed in 1 year, and we are talking about 70 years of nuclear installed capacity. And also, if you look to the triple of nuclear by 2050, it will be what we have to install of renewables in 1 year. I always give you this example because in this case, it's evident that carbon neutrality doesn't exist. And also, there is another aspect that is relevant that makes clear that renewables is the only technology that provide the speed and the scale needed to be in line with the 1.5 Paris Agreement. So this is the first thing that we have to understand in implementing the outcome of COP28. The other aspect is that we have to understand that every system, energy system, needs structures that sustain the system itself. So what is possible for the gases from Azerbaijan coming to my house or in Sicily? We need someone that is able to extract the gas, put in pipeline, on ship. We do have a legal system that allows for them to sell, for me to buy, and then we have institutional capacity for dealing with the system and the workforce we needed to make this happening. So this is something that has applied for a centralized energy system based on fossil fuel. Now we have structures that should fit with the new system that is coming. This means that we need grid. We need a sea route, sea grid, sea cable that may be interconnected, that may be flexible, that can be balanced. We need storage. We need all the holistic world of renewables put in place and sustain what is physical infrastructure. And we need a legal environment and policies that are coherent with this. Still, we have not a market for green hydrogen. So we need a policy for that. We still have 1 trillion of subsidies for fossil fuel. We cannot survive with that. We have to create a more favorable environment for all our companies in Europe. And we know how dramatic is the problem. We need in Europe take profit of our potential in offshore wind, Baltic Sea grids, legal environment. So all things have to work together. So we really hope, we have started to work with the COP29 presidency. The next COP will be very important, not only because they have to set the new financial goal after the 100 billion, but also because will be, we hope, we have discussed it with them in this day, should be a bath in the reality. So we have exactly understand where we are, and we will work to provide this element with the Global Renewable Alliance, with the COP presidency, hopefully with both of them, giving the number. On the basis the COP may discuss the basis for the raising ambition in these NDCs that should be presented in 2025. So these elements are important. The last comment when we talk about finance, a financial system cannot be sustained if we always call for concessional loan and grants. It's always easy to call this, but it's not always possible. So what is important in the multilateral financial institution reform is that they have to go to a more inclusive process for their decision making. Naturally, we need more concessional loan and grant, but what we need, that we focus on what is really needed. And the multilateral financial institution is the only entity that can work on provide resources for the strengthening and the adapting of the grids around the world. Investing in Africa, in the grids, without interconnectivity, without flexibility, Africa will not put at their service in the service of the other their potential.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask that we stop there because I want to come back to finance a little bit later. And by the way, I see that on our poll, 12% said that private companies are absolutely essential as drivers. More interestingly enough, 18 and 12 essentially together. So we'll come back to the poll result, however. First, I would like to get a take from all of you on your success stories and your challenges. And I'm going to ask for short answers, if you would, so that we can come back and do a second deep dive a little bit later on. So, Minister Diom, Senegal is one of the countries in Africa where the energy transition is proceeding fastest. Your current action plan aims to double the share of renewables from 20% to 40% by 2030. What are the key drivers for your success so far, and where are your biggest challenges for the future?
Oui, je vous remercie, Madame, pour l'invitation. Je remercie également l'ensemble des panélistes.
Thank you very much. First of all, for the invitation.
Le gouvernement fédéral.
I would like to start by thanking the German government for inviting me and for giving us this opportunity to share with you our position on this highly important topic. In response to your question, Senegal is exemplary when it comes to the development of renewables. We started out with a very small share of renewables, 8% in 2012, and we've made it to 31% with regard to the electricity network. So we use 31 points of renewable electricity, and this has meant using solar energy and also wind energy. Since 2012, we've been working towards this. Thanks to President Macky Sall, who said renewables are not just an alternative form of energy that will give us access to clean energy at competitive prices. He said we also need to diversify. Fatih Birol said something very important with regard to Africa. The rate of electrification is still very low in Africa. We've reached 27%, and with our current government has taken us from 27% to 61% of access to electricity in rural areas. And I'd really like to draw your attention to this. So, despite the difficult circumstances, we've made major leaps forward. So within 10 years, we made it from 27 to 61% electrification rate. We've also succeeded in electrifying several very remote villages. So thanks to the partnership that we signed with several countries, including China, Germany, the UK and Canada, and with the European Union and France, we are now planning to get to 40% of renewables by 2030. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. And of course, that very much reinforces what we heard from Francesco about the need to look at the enabling framework and infrastructure as a whole. Let me go over now to Secretary Singh Bala. And in fact, renewable electricity is growing faster in India than in any other major economy. And you are now number 4 worldwide in terms of installed renewable energy capacity. So 2 questions, if you would. In which sectors and regions is the energy transition moving fastest, and where do the biggest challenges lie? We just heard about rural areas in Senegal. That is also, for your government, of course, a topic. So share that with us. And if you were advising other countries who want to emulate your model, what would you say is the most important step?
Thank you so much. You know, we've already, we started our energy transition many years ago. In 10 years, actually the pace has increased substantially. We had a renewable energy capacity of 75 gigawatts about 10 years ago, 2014. Now it's doubled, more than doubled to 183 gigawatts to be exact. We have a target of, India has set a target of 500 gigawatt of non-fossil electricity capacity by 2030. So that's 6.5 years from now. We are at it, and we are going to succeed in it. In solar, we have increased from 2.5 gigawatts to more than 75 gigawatts in solar alone. Wind has been there in the country for 40 years. Since the 80s, we have had windmills in the country, and they've done well. But solar, India is blessed with sun. So when we started, we really started well, and now we are galloping. in the next, till by 2030, out of 500 gigawatts of capacity that we anticipate to complete, 300 or so would be solar, and about 100 or so would be wind. In the run-up to 2030, we have to do a lot of things to make it happen. And the way that, in fact, what you asked about, how can we, what something that we did would help other countries. We have a policy and regulatory framework which is very, very clear, categorical, and transparent. We've had bidding mechanisms through model bidding guidelines and standard bidding guidelines in the country for many years. We tweak them to improve them occasionally. We have a huge private sector, and now we do not. Initially, yes, we did invest from the government to initiate the, to initiate the projects in the country. But then now we don't do anything. We only do mechanisms. We only set a policy. We come out with what we want, and then the private sector does the rest. And that's something which is important for any other country which would want to emulate not only India but many other countries which are doing so well. How am I confident that we'll do well? 180 gigawatt or so is currently there. We have about 180 gigawatt additional, which is under implementation. And the balance we have about 140, which needs to be tied up. We've upped our game. Last year, the year before, we had a bidding of about 30 or so, 25 to 30 gigawatt across the country, which is central government agencies and the state governments. We have a federal structure. This year, from the central government alone, our agencies have come out with bids for about 44 gigawatts already. We hope to do about 50 gigawatt by the end of March, which is a few days from now. In addition, the states have done bidding of about 17,000 megawatts or 17 gigawatts. In addition, the CNI sector, which is the industry, has done, there are bids which are for CNI, which have been about for 7,000. So actually, we are now putting up a mechanism for getting projects executed at about 70 to 75 gigawatts a year. Now, and we have 6 years still remaining. And even if some projects do not come on ground, normally these projects take about 2.5 years for them to come up. Sometimes it can be done in 18 months if you have the land available.
Can you just repeat those two numbers for everybody? Because I think for many of us used to permitting times and completion times of 7 to 8 years, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, 2 years ago, what I mentioned was that, how we do in India is that we do not go ahead and do it ourselves. We have standard bidding mechanisms. We say that we want to buy so much of electricity. Somebody has to come up and set up a project. We have these, and it's quite clear on how it is to be done. We have a payment security mechanism. We have an intermediary agencies which will buy the power from whoever produces. So the producer is sure of that the government will buy. Some of the agencies of the government will buy. The government or the government agency does a back-to-back agreement with the power distribution companies, which are the ultimate procurers. So the producer is insulated from what the DISCOM wants or how they are, how the mechanism will work. They are insulated. And therefore, this mechanism, what I mentioned, we have upped the numbers significantly in the current financial year. Our financial year is basically April to March. That's how we look at it in India. In this year, we will be doing, from the central government point of view, we will be completing bidding for about 50,000 megawatts per year. So this year, we have the states which have come out with bids for another 17,000 megawatt, 17 gigawatts. You have the CNI sector, which is doing about 7,000.
One
that
question.
Means,
yeah.
Sorry.
I want to ask you to slowly come to an end, but one sentence, if you would, please, to challenges, your biggest challenges.
Yes, when you grow at this pace, Therefore, the challenges will come. And one of the key challenges, India is a big country, but we also have a big population. So the one challenge which is emerging is land. Finding tracts of land which are sufficient for the kind of project which are coming up. Land per se is not a problem. Finding a land which has the highest solar insolation so that you get the best efficiency, the best output, that is the increasing challenge. But again, we are addressing that too. For example, Rajasthan by itself, Rajasthan is one of the states in India. Rajasthan by itself has enough land in 3 of its districts, I'm not talking about the entire state, which will take care of the entire 500 gigawatt requirement of India. I'm talking about only 3 districts of one state in India, which has sufficient land. So land per se is not an issue, but developers will have to go and find it out and negotiate with the government or with the private players. That's one of the challenges. Second, I would just mention about the storage aspect. When you ramp up your renewable energy in the grid will need to be stabilized, and therefore the storage, the grid scale storage solutions have now to be implemented in earnest. We've started already, but our estimate is that we will need to have a bigger number from 2027 onwards. Till then, we can manage. But by 2027 to 2030, we'll have to ramp up the storage in the country.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to go over to Sonia Dunlop now, but I'd like to combine that with a very quick look at the poll result because it tells us something about the issue I want to raise with you. Dear Regie, could we get the poll result up on the screens, please? I would like to, it is there, okay. Dear audience, are you seeing the poll result? Yes, okay, good. We're not seeing it up here. But I see it on my small screen, and we have essentially 18% of the audience saying that private finance, and if we also take private companies, then we arrive at 29% altogether, saying those are the most important implementing actors and drivers of the COP28 decisions. And I wanted to just raise that now because, in fact, Sonia Dunlop, you are working with a very widespread array of companies in the global community that are committed to the energy transition and decarbonization. So I want to ask you, what are the sectors and the regions where private business activity is particularly strong, where it's thriving, and where do the biggest obstacles to private investment lie? Because we do see that some companies are sitting on their money and not essentially unlocking capital for this important aim.
That's right. Thank you so much. And we at the Global Renewables Alliance, we do indeed represent tens, hundreds of thousands of private companies and financial institutions active in solar, active in wind, in geothermal, in hydropower, in green hydrogen, and in long-duration storage, which is going to be really important to reach those levels of renewables that we need. And we obviously hugely celebrated and worked very hard towards the tripling of renewables goal that we got at COP28 Dubai, triple up and double down, triple renewables and double energy efficiency. And we think now that there are still some obstacles that we need to overcome, as you say, and that now it's time for action. And that's our campaign that we're launching today. And the obstacles we see are grid, and what you were describing there was very interesting in terms of land. And of course, there may be land, but does it have a grid connection is the key question, right? It's finance, it's supply chains, and it's permitting. We need to speed up permitting so that we match the pace of change we need in order to achieve the tripling target and achieve 1.5 degrees. We need to make sure that the finance is ready to deliver both public finance and private finance in all countries of the world to make sure that no country is left behind in the global renewables revolution, because the truth is that there are some countries, like here in Germany, and I want to salute everything that Germany has done for the last 25 years to support the energy transition, to support renewables. But here in Germany, the cost of finance is very good. But in many countries around the world, such as in Senegal, Minister Antoine, we need to bring down that cost of finance with the help of guarantees and risks. We need to address the grid challenges. And the grid challenges aren't just about building stronger and more resilient grids in developed countries, but also about thinking about those 600 million people that Annalena Baerbock, the foreign minister, mentioned this morning, who do not have access to electricity, and for whom small-scale renewables and renewable mini-grids, small solar, small hydro, small storage, can absolutely transform their lives. This is where we also need to be making sure that we are deploying renewables, and this is where we can be absolutely transformational in giving people energy access and local jobs and the ability to lift themselves out of poverty and build a better future. We really believe that if we address these 4 areas, and it's time for action on those 4 areas, we can do it, and we can achieve the tripling, achieve the doubling, and then go beyond to really achieving the global energy transition. And what we can deliver is we have brought down the cost of renewables, of solar, of wind, of all the other technologies by a huge amount over the last 10 years. And we will continue to innovate and find new projects and new innovative business models and solutions and use the latest technology to do that. We need your support as the 190 governments of the world to help us reach that tripling goal by addressing some of those remaining challenges in terms of grid permitting and the global supply chain to achieve that.
Thank you very much, Sonia. And finally, to Minister Frattini, last year, Italy submitted to the EU a new national energy and climate plan that sets ambitious 23 targets, including 4 renewables. What policies are you using? What are your main levers to achieve these goals? And where is the transition moving quickly? Where do you need to accelerate it?
Sì, grazie. Beh, innanzitutto grazie a Sonia che mi sta tenendo il traduttore.
We have some technical problems here that we're solving.
Allora, no, innanzitutto grazie.
So, first of all, thank you. Thank you, Sonia. So we have the National Plan for 2030 that we presented because Italy was suddenly faced with the gas crisis due to the conflict in Ukraine. 30 billion tons, that was the amount to which we depended on Russia. Now we have a national production that is very limited, so we are almost entirely dependent on imports. We are currently in a position where 2/3 of electricity come from fossil resources, exported energy, that is, and 1/3 is renewable energy and hydropower. So we have more than 300 terawatt. That is the demand, the national demand per hour, and a large share of that is being imported. One of the major major import countries for us is France, 40%, but these 40% come from nuclear energy. So we now have to try to overcome fossil fuels and especially natural gas, because it is the objective of the Italian government to phase out coal starting in 2025. And To the same extent, we are also thinking about geothermal energy, where we want to make sure that a maximum of 1/3 of energy comes from natural gas. So that we believe that this is possible, even in the light of the aim of 70 gigawatts of renewable energy. And when it comes to approvals, then we were looking at 30 gigawatts in 22 and 6 gigawatts in 23. So our goal has to be to increase this number even further so that we can achieve around 135 gigawatts of renewable energy. And that would mean that 2/3 of our energy demand would be met by that. So that is one aspect, one front line we're fighting at. And the other one is imports from the south. Together with Dana, we are currently working on a link with Tunisia. We have large-scale private projects that are currently being evaluated that are about importing energy from Algeria or Tunisia, so going beyond Italy. Other projects are thinking about going beyond the Alps to the north in order to pass on energy to Bavaria or Baden-Württemberg, for example, who are large consumers. A few minutes ago, I had the opportunity to talk to Vice Minister Habeck about this. And in face of this total situation, we are also considering hydrogen. And in this context, we are talking about large-scale projects that can be a vehicle for the energy production of the future. We are already launching measures. We are seeing large-scale national investments. 3.7 billion of euros is the investment that we have seen in this area. But also when it comes to hydrogen, we are talking to countries in Northern Africa. We have the Matei plan, as it's called, and this plan involves the countries in Northern Africa, and we are talking about gas, biofuels, and hydrogen, and about using these energy carriers in the farming sector, and that is the overall situation in the energy sector in Italy.
Thank you very much, Minister. And I want to stay with you and essentially take us right into a very quick second round of questions, because I have my eye on the clock and the time is running down. There's a minister's lunch that I have to make sure all of you get to on time. So let me ask all of you now to speak very briefly, 1 minute around each, to talk about what you see as the most important levers. And I'm going to reference the poll, if I may, again. Régie, could we get the poll back up on the screens, please? Because the majority of those in the audience said that they feel that multilateral initiatives and national policies are the two key drivers. We see it here. So 34% say national policies, 26% multilateral. And Mr. Frattini, your government will be hosting the next G7, which clearly is a pivotal place to shape multilateral initiatives. So what is your action plan to use the G7 platform as a way to get delivery on the global renewable energy goals? What can you do there? Quick answer, if you would.
Ma guardi, io credo che il G7, rappresentando comunque 7 paesi importanti, sia proprio il punto di partenza, il trampolino di lancio per
I believe that the G7 represent 7 key countries, and we are therefore thinking big, also when it comes to the financial sector. And this means that, of course, we have to collaborate with the private sector, but it also means that we have to think about how these countries what these countries are going to do about their commitments to the consumers. And these deliberations can take place at the G7 level, but also at the European level. The next Commission meeting, for example, here, we will have to make sure that it needs to be ensured that the consumers, domestic consumers and industry have to be treated in the same way.
Many people did say that they consider private finance and private sector to be key drivers. And indeed, you mentioned that your strong private sector has been one of your key success factors. So tell us what has been key in terms of policy enabling frameworks to get this kind of strong participation from the private sector in general and also the financial sector?
As I mentioned, our policy framework has been very consistent. It has been very transparent. Any changes that we make are also done in consultation with the sector, with all the stakeholders. So everybody is aware of what the need is of the country and how the government is intending to speeden up the implementation of renewable energy in the country. Secondly, the participation is totally open. We have FDI, which is 100%, it's 100% automatic. All our companies are getting funds from abroad for all as part of equity and as part of debt. I don't think there is any big pension fund or private equity or other mutual fund or any other fund in the world which is not looking at India as one of the key areas in which they want investments in because of what all is happening. So private sector has now the wherewithal and the capacity to, with all the new projects coming in, to access these funds from all those agencies around the world. But it's also important for, I think, the overall money is there. But I think the cost of finance is definitely something that the world needs to look at. I think that's where everybody needs to get together and see how can we reduce that cost of financing for not only private sector in India, but also for everybody in the world. I think that would be key to as we go forward.
Thank you. And Sonia, staying with the question of the private sector, what reforms does industry see as most crucial in industrialized countries, but also in developing countries to unlock capital? What would you say are the absolute top priorities there? Again, briefly, if you would.
Reforms of the permitting process, of how you do the planning permission and the permitting for renewables projects, reforms of the enabling technologies that allow us to better integrate renewables into the grid. So that includes storage, that includes flexible demand, which I encourage all of you to look at. And I salute all the work you've done so far, but flexible demand is really important. And also looking at what Minister Fratin mentioned about interconnectors across borders and across time zones, where there's a lot of potential in India as well, is really important. But I think, really, we are ready to deliver. We can do this. We are ready to deliver. In many countries, the economics are very favorable in terms of the price differential between renewables and other technologies. We just need the right enabling frameworks, certainty, like the Minister from India mentioned, and thank you, Secretary of State Singh, for that. And we need to have the global framework as well that sends the market signals to the investors in Wall Street, in the City of London, in Tokyo, in the World Bank, in the African Development Bank, and so on, that this is where they should be putting their money. And we want to work with those investors to look at what are the challenges of why they are sometimes not scaling up their renewables and what we can do to solve them. And that can be standardization of renewables projects, standardization of contracts, and working on those four main challenges, including on supply chains, grid, and permitting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will have additional sessions later on that will be looking at financing in particular. Minister Diom, I'd like to talk with you very briefly about the multilateral issue that, or politics that also got a large share of the vote on our poll. Last year, Senegal concluded a just energy transition partnership with several international partners, which does aim to support your goals, including universal access for those who don't have, as you say, access to power in Senegal. What is crucial about a partnership like that? How can it be most effective in supporting your national aims? Again, briefly, if you kindly would be.
Oui, je vous remercie. Alors, pour le partenariat qui a été
Thank you very much. When it comes to multilateral partnerships with various partners, Germany, France, Canada, the United Kingdom, these partnerships are highly important for us. We want to consider various different elements when it comes to financing rates. Then financing rates have to be economically viable. They must enable us to promote renewable energies. We have to bridge the gap of 39% of renewables so that the whole population has access to energy. Our goals as government, we want the entire population to have access to electricity by 2026. So it's about technology transfer too. This transfer of technologies must not be forgotten. As part of our partnership, we do not want to become dependent on fossil fuels. And until then, we really depend on other countries. And we also depend on the technologies provided by other countries. We want this technology transfer to be successful. And we want to promote skill development in Senegal. A second factor that is highly important is the population. The partnership has to be just and fair. It must be a fair partnership that benefits the entire population. Fatih Birol talked about this earlier. It's an important aspect for me. More than 600 million African people do not have access to electricity today. They must be given access. That must be part of this fair partnership, and this partnership can enable us to achieve this goal. Without the support of our partners, it will not be possible. The situation today is still unjust. We are suffering from global warming, and here we need support. President Sall spoke at the COP28. He said, we have to be aware of climate change, but we also have to be aware of access to electricity. These are two different things that we need to dovetail. Thank you.
About the importance of that technology transfer to make sure that we have local value added in realizing these pledges. Francesco, last word to you. And I'd like to also ask you to just talk very briefly about priority steps to boost international cooperation, given the fact that you do have a global mandate and that we're coming up soon on the IRENA Assembly. So, please.
Thank you. Let me respond, just take into account also the mentioning of the different title in the screen. So, and I will do this by example. So, mentioning our initiative, the Africa Renewable Energy Partnership that was launched in Nairobi in the occasion of the Climate Summit in September, and then also launched at head of state level in COP28. We have 7 countries, starting from Namibia to Kenya, and we have from the north-south, Germany, Denmark, the UAE and US that have been working on this initiative. There is a national politics because we work with the countries for having their plan coming. We are working on public finance because the donor, they're not provide the funding together with other sources. We have the private finance because in the national plan we provide for what is needed in terms of policies for having more foreign investment to come, so the private companies. And we have in some way the public finance because we also want with the multilateral financial institution in this framework. And we have been discussing with our minister and friends Gilberto, trying, and under his leadership, we want to bring this initiative that has already G7 partners in the G7 dialogue. Hopefully, we have already presented the initiative in the working group. I'm sure that Gilberto will bring this in Turin for having a successful endorsement of G7 of this initiative. So this initiative where you can find all this, and we are exploring to open this to other parts of the world. The last comment I want to see, because I see my friends from International Solar Alliance here, we want to mention our work on the supply chain. I think it's important that what we are doing together, and we'll present this in the occasion of the Clean Energy Ministerial in September. I think it's important to work on the supply chain because this is a way to let more added value remain in the developing world.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much to all of you. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there, but it's been a very valuable exchange of views, and it sets the stage for many of our upcoming discussions at the conference. Let's give them a warm round of applause, please.